All right, Doug's a great NFL head coach. He's won a Super Bowl, and he's beloved by players. And he himself has a little coaching tree, as you see across the league. Press Taylor and Frank Reich and all these guys have worked under him. I found the Jaguars head coaching hiring process to be very, very unique. Urban Meyer was fired in week 15 of the NFL season. They had all of December to start laying out their plans for what their ideal coach was. They interviewed Doug Pederson on December 28th. Guys, that was 3 days after Christmas. We've had an entire Omicron surge since then. We've had an entire NFL playoffs since then. We have had a bye week since then.
Ozarks dropped, Peter.
Ozarks has dropped since
Chris seen the whole thing already.
Adele went from the most popular person in the world to being not the most popular person in the world. Guys, December 28th was Doug Pederson's first interview with the Jaguars. They interviewed just about the entire NFL in between. Eberflus, Bill O'Brien. You go through the list of all the different people. Hackett, we might have. Leftwich. Leftwich is going to be the guy. That's what we heard. No, Leftwich not. And then on Tuesday, they call up Doug Pederson a full month after they interviewed him and said, why don't you come back down again, and hired him late Thursday night. Fascinating.
NFL Network did this to me. They made me wait it out.
Is that right?
I literally thought I was going into medical sales or real estate after ESPN let me go. So sometimes, if you wait, it'll come around.
You've been a great pharma salesperson, James.
Oh, my God, I'd buy it.
We like you on the network.
Very compelling.
I just find it really interesting, and I would love to know whether it was because of the general manager, Trent Baalke, that some candidates said, I don't know if I want to work with him, or if Doug left such a lasting impression, they're like, we know we love Doug Pederson. Let's meet everyone first, and then we could always come back to Doug. Because I'll tell you this, Doug Pederson was great in that first interview. Everything I heard was that he was buttoned up, had his staff, let's go, let's do this thing. But then they interviewed literally a dozen people before they came back to him. It just goes to show. Sometimes you get these NFL buildings where it's like, we've got our guy, we're going to snap our fingers, let's wrap it up, let's go. With Pederson, not only was it the full 6 weeks before they hired him, they had 4 weeks before that to consider what they were going to do. I think Doug Pederson is a great football coach, and he's the ideal guy to go with a young Trevor Lawrence because of what we saw him do with a Carson Wentz and then a Nick Foles. But I would love the 30 for 30 one day on the hiring process and how they ended up with Doug Pederson after interviewing him first in the process and then ending up hiring him nearly 6 weeks later.
I think the most interesting part of that 30 for 30 when it comes out is the Leftwich part of it. Like, you don't hire Byron Leftwich. There's a whole thing that was going on because it's getting buzz and buzz and buzz, and it seemed obviously the perfect fit. There was a report that Leftwich jersey sales were skyrocketing, and Jaguars fans, who haven't had a lot to be excited about, were like, we're getting our guy. We love Byron. I grew up watching Byron. I'm going to hire him. And then you hear what you were alluding to, Peter, about the Baalke thing, and you didn't want to work with him maybe, and then it's just poof, withdrawing his name. And then you're like, who else can we go to? It feels like then they look back like, does Doug still want it? And they call them. And here's the thing. I think Pederson, he has a complicated reputation with fans. Is he a great coach? I know he won a Super Bowl, and that's always the first thing. But, like, all the development of what you talked about with Wentz and Foles, like, was that a Reich thing? Was that another? I mean, Doug Pederson has a statue, literally has a statue outside of the Eagles Stadium. That's him and Nick Foles, both of which were dispatched pretty quickly. But the dispatching from Philly is also interesting because it doesn't seem like he was fired just for cause. It got complicated. It got ugly. There's weird quarterback situations. There's the Howie thing. He had one bad season, and their guy with a statue, they're like, you're out of here. So it wasn't like this guy who's just like, season after season it fell apart. It's complicated.
I know. He won a Super Bowl, then went to the playoffs the next 2 years.
Next 2 years, then one bad season and gone. And yet he's the guy that they went back to. And just strictly on the field, Chris, I know you have thoughts on this. He's going to play Carson Wentz twice now, a year. The Colts never win in Jacksonville. We just saw that debacle that Indianapolis had to end the season, and now they're going to go down there and face Doug Pederson. It's actually one of the marquee games now is Colts at Jags. So in that respect, it's a win. But, Chris, there's a lot of other layers of this.
Yeah, I think Doug Pederson is a quality coach.
Okay.
I think he deserves to be a head coach in the NFL. But for me, given the climate that we're in right now, it's hard for me to have any positive energy towards any franchise that would not look at African-American or pass over an African-American to be able to go to another candidate. Byron Leftwich, he was a perfect fit there. What other offensive coordinator could be the offensive coordinator for Tom Brady, straight off New England, 20 years, take them to the Super Bowl, and then come back and Tom Brady has another year? So for me, I do have a problem with this. A year ago, Urban Meyer coached me at Ohio State, 1986. He was my wide receiver coach. So last year, he gets the Jacksonville job. Me and Urban have extensive conversations. We have a conversation about me joining his support staff. He said, I like the idea, I like the concept. He said, can you write it up for me? So I go to my boy, Chris Spillman. He's one of my college teammates, back from Ohio. He's working in Detroit. He's special assistant to the owner, to the Ford family in Detroit. How do you do this, Chris? How do I set it up? How do I write it up? Roles and responsibility. I give him a whole treatment. Send it to Urban. Urban likes it. He said, in a couple of weeks, we're going to bring you up here. I want you to meet the owner and meet Trent Baalke. Urban calls me back 2 days later. Said, Trent Baalke killed it. Said, he didn't see the skill set. He didn't see the value that you would bring to the organization. I said, well, Urban, I don't know what you and Trent Baalke been doing since 1987, but the last 5 decades, I've been associated with the National Football League. It wasn't about a coaching position. It built support the head coach, Urban, who didn't know about pro football. I said, Urban, I can be your eyes and your ears. Just one example. There's no way we lose to Cincinnati, and Urban Meyer is not on that plane going back to Jacksonville.
Thursday night game.
So I would have, one thing right there. Chris Carter, we're going back to Jacksonville. We'll get on the PJ Friday morning and then go back up to Ohio, which we're both from. So for them, I don't think next year that we'll be sitting here charting like you beautifully did. This is the road to building a champion. I don't think they'll be on it. So for me, I got huge problems. I left the league 20 years ago. There was 3 black coaches. What happened? Are we going backwards? That's just my question. To the general public, are we going backwards?
And I think my response to that is I think it's a fair question, right? But I also think we can't negate the qualifications of Doug Pederson either, or the fact that they did their due diligence, the fact that they took a month and they did
How do we know?
Extensive
what has Jacksonville done from a coaching standpoint, hiring standpoint, that we know they did it the right way?
Well, I think they clearly failed with Urban Meyer, so I think that's why there wasn't
same guy, same people picking the groceries.
I think that's why there wasn't a rush to judgment, but I just also think we can't take away from the fact that Doug Pederson had a very challenging year. They went to the Super Bowl, lost their starting quarterback in Carson Wentz, and literally had the Phillies special, and it was a huge game, and it was competitive. And I think sometimes, and this goes for white and black coaches, women, sometimes in the league, there's a narrative that is created about them on their exit, whether it be from a media organization, whether it be from a team, or whether it be from a coaching staff. And so while you're talking about the narrative of Doug Pederson, to your point, we don't know the whole story about how that devolved with Howie and going down the lines. And so I'm not saying that you don't have a valid point.
Right. I'm going to say one more thing, and then I'm going to let it go.
What you got?
Doug Pederson was a backup quarterback in the NFL. Was around a lot of good people. All right? Was with Andy Reid. Eric Bieniemy's been with him, too. Look at the numbers. He's calling the plays there. So before we start trying to put our flag on certain ships, these are the things that have happened to African-American coaches, as far as, especially if they get one try. They don't get a second try,
well,
a second bite at the apple. So I'm just looking at what's going on.
Vance Joseph is a great argument for that.
I mean, we sit here today, and we got one African-American head coach, and I can't do TV right unless I speak about that. And that right there, it hurts me, because I've seen what this league can do for African-Americans on the field. I brag about it all the time. I've never had a real job before in my life. So you're telling me I can only be my best on the field. If I decide to go to the front office, if I decide to go coach, but if I go to the combine, if I break my neck, if I work hard, if I lift them weights, I can do anything on the field. That's my dilemma. And that's the way I see it through my lens that's been watching this for a minute.
And it's fair, and I think you want the league to be representative of the people that it serves as well, right? And so I want you to know I'm not taking away from your argument. I also say we shouldn't take away from either the qualifications of the person who got the job either.